crowds. Treading water that they drowning. My head on the swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings.
Hello and welcome to episode 65 of the Smash Accept podcast. Are your running backs injured on the job? Tell them you mean business with the injury lawyers at Smash, Hampton, and Royer. We get you back in the game and get paid.
We'll turn that injury crash into smash and cash. We'll turn your pain into rain.
Typical dad style mode. You know, we had to get out here. We're doing a 2 o'clock episode. We got the business suits on. You know, we're ready to go because we are the lawyers that are going to get you in there, right? We got the Smash injury lawyers, Mr. Playoff, Mr. Rookie Fever. You know, we got you set. And this past week was absolutely brutal. I mean, if you survived the injuries, if you survived it, congratulations, you know. And we have a lot of people on Twitter really going off and trying to say their own parade of, oh, well, you should have avoided running backs. Oh, you should have avoided this, you know. And it's like, this is the time of year where you got to make some decisions, right, John? I mean,
that's right.
You know me, I'm always all in. And we talked about some of the trades last year where I was in positions to make some trades, and you got to overpay because everybody knows you're trying to win it. Right now I'm in 15 leagues, 13 of them I'm the 1 or 2 seed. So I lost McCaffrey in 7 of them. I lost Dalvin Cook in 7 of them. And now it's like, what do you do, John? You know, and we talked about this before we jumped on. You're not going to get a nice, cushy deal, right? Someone's not going to give you 110% for McCaffrey. You're going to get 80 cents on the dollar if you're lucky on both Dalvin and Christian McCaffrey. But we got to find out some ways to push on and win those titles. Yeah,
exactly. Like you said, winning always comes at a cost, right? It's true in life. It's true in fantasy football. And so you got to ask yourself right now, what is the cost you're willing to pay? But remember, everybody, I mean, we're in it to win it. The goal is to win, play to win. So try to figure out a way to do it, but you got to ask yourself, what is the cost of winning that ship?
Everything's opportunity cost analysis. I mean, you're in the business world, I'm in the retail world, you know, and we understand those kind of things, and you got to take them into fantasy football. You know, there's a lot of guys, John, where they're like, you know what, I just lost Christian McCaffrey, but I'm willing to row with player X, and he's an RB7. You know, like they're just going to throw a guy out there. They're like, no, I don't want to overpay. You know, I want to hold on to my first for next year. I want to do this. And it's like, I cannot play in that situation where it's like, man, if I would have made that trade, I would have won the championship. Whether that's the money, whether that's the glory, whether that's just bragging rights to your league mates. You know, you and I are 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 now. I know you passed up there in Smash Accept Listener League 1, and it's like we're willing to do whatever to get that title, you know. And it's like you got to go in for it.
Yeah, and you got various options, right, in the Smash League, and it looks like I locked up the 1 seed in the first round by humble brag there, but. But part of what I just did is I traded away most of my picks now, 22, 23 picks, to get a couple more pieces. I happened to pick up Keenan Allen and Zach Ertz in one deal there that involved 23 picks. And we're going to talk you through this. Like, what are your options? You can trade your picks. You can trade away some of your depth potentially, or some of those younger players that aren't yet in your starting lineup, or you actually trade the injured player for, like you said, 80 cents on the dollar, right?
Yeah, and I've been talking a lot to FF Day Trader. You know, him and I, we talk a lot backstage, and we talk about a lot of trades, and he's always in there, and he's a guy that was like buying up McCaffrey, just like we've been saying, you know, go out and get him because it was a nice schedule. It was, you know, at a discount, and now we got a situation where it's like, now what do we do? You know, and I think the mentality when we were talking to each other is I would much rather pay up and try to win it than to be stuck there and be like, I came in third because I didn't make that move. Because the next year you can tear it down a little bit. I mean, you know, you have the bragging rights, you have that money, you have the time where it's like, oh, now I have a position where I can rebuild a little bit. And I know that's tough to say, but I would much rather be on that side of the fence.
Push into chips, go for it. That's our style. And yeah, I mean, if you've been listening to the show, you've been picking up tips over the last few weeks. We did that competing pod. That was a really good one. But remember, Mike, I'm going to bring this back to a quick conversation we had on this pod with Mong, which was who is the 101 and why Christian McCaffrey held that risk. Mung and I had both moved off of him as the 101 and put JT there. It's just before he started to blow up in 5 touchdown games. And why? It's because that risk that CMC brought, if he went down again, what would happen to his value? And I think we're actually gonna look at what the some of the rankings and the response for that is now.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about rankings. We're going to talk about some trades. We're going to talk about the news. First thing I want to bring up is our co-host here. You know, he's been super busy with work, but Mung put out a tweet this week, and I really liked it because he said, here are the first 2 rounds of ADP. So you got McCaffrey at 101, missed 5 games with a hamstring. Now he's on IR with the ankle. Dalvin Cook missed 2 games with the ankle. Now he's on potentially IR for 2 to 3 weeks here with the shoulder. Kamara missed 3 games. Sounds like we're going to get him back this week. Henry on IR with the broken foot. You know, we just go down through this whole list, and every single guy, I mean, we go, Zeke might be limited to the knee injury now, rest of schedule, so there's a little bit of risk there. Adams has been great. You know, he's missed that 1 game with COVID. Kelsey's been great. Aaron Jones missed 1 game, but now he's a little bit limited, and I think we get a little bit of a timeshare with those 2 running backs.
Have you been the victim of one of those first-round injuries? We're here to help.
Absolutely. Thank you for
crazy though. Really,
I'm getting over a cold here, and that was a great timing to jump back in there. We got Barkley missed 4 games with the ankle sprain.
Yeah.
Eckler and Taylor are okay. Chubb missed 2 games. I mean, it's been crazy.
It truly has. I mean, I think that we always run the risk of, hey, it's always worse in the season that you're in. When you're in it, it always seems worse. No, this one really is considerably worse than previous years. I even saw this like by week 9, I want to say, we had already had more ACL injuries in the NFL than the entire 2020 season combined. And I don't even know how you explain that, because there's actually been more conditioning, more off-season, more preseason. I don't really know. But you just go through that first round. It's wild. Yeah,
and I mean, you got Hopkins in the second round, missed 3 games plus. Gibson. I mean, he got Ridley's up in there. I mean, it's just, I saw Ian Hartis put out there, you know, everybody's taking their victory lap, right? Oh, you should have passed on running backs in those early rounds. But I mean, your wide receivers are going down too. You know, it's just a matter of, it's a game of attrition. We got to have that depth. We talk about that a lot, you know, throughout the season. And normally this is the time of year where we push the chips all in and you try to make those moves. And sometimes you make moves like I talked about, you know, 2 weeks ago where I traded David Montgomery and DK Metcalf for Dalvin Cook for a stretch run. Oops. You know, now I'm in a situation where luckily I had some depth to make that kind of move. Mm-hmm. But you push it in, and you want to push it in for guys that have a little bit less risk. And I knew Dalvin Cook did, Christian McCaffrey did, and that hurt. So now let's start talking about what we're going to do here, you know, how we're going to make these moves. If you go on Dynasty Trade Calculator right now, you know, they made a quick move here on this with the market. They always do, and they tried to assess where the running back situation is right now. So Jonathan Taylor is their clear-cut RB1 in their rankings. Najee Harris is at 2, Swift 3. I'm assuming if they had tiers, they would be right there in that same area. Nick Chubb 4. McCaffrey 5? Nope. Barkley 5. Mixon 6. Eckler 7. Kamara 8. Christian McCaffrey falls all the way to RB9. Javonte Williams, RB10. Zeke 11, and Dalvin Cook all the way to RB12. So you're looking at, according to these rankings,
10 and 12.
They are borderline RB1s at this point because of those injuries.
Yeah. I respect DTC. That does feel like an overreaction to me. But if you are competing and you want to make a deal, I have to give him some credit. That's probably what you can expect to get value in that range, that low RB1 range for both of those guys. It does look like Dalvin Cook, though, has a chance to be back for the fantasy playoffs from what I've heard. We'll get into that. But, I do feel like, okay, let's be careful about how much we overreact to that one. He may just end up missing a couple of weeks. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that one's a little bit different. But let's talk about McCaffrey first.
Right.
Okay, so he's played, since Matt Rule's taken over, he's played in 6 games in 2 years. You know, so we're looking at, he was the king of fantasy, right? 2 years ago, absolutely, right? There was the 101. Yeah. You were taking him over quarterbacks in Superflex. Maybe it was him or Mahomes. Yeah. What are you going to do? You know, and
in his own tier, right? Yeah.
He was putting up 30 points a game. He was an absolute league winner for you 2 years in a row, right? And now those soft tissue injuries are piling up. and they just keep going. Now we get the high ankle sprain, usually 4 to 6 weeks. Panthers aren't in contention, so they shut him down. He's luckily going to avoid surgery with this kind of move, but we got to at least think about what are we trying to do, right? So I'm in the leagues I have him. I'm trying to make some 1-for-1 moves with non-playoff teams. I've offered him and a late second for Kamara. I've offered him even for Mixon. I'm trying to make those kind of moves. I've offered him for Nick Chubb in a second. I'm trying to make some moves because at this point, Taylor, Harris, and Swift, you're not buying them, right? If you're trying to buy them for a stretch run, you're going to pay insane amounts because if you're rebuilding, you're keeping them. If you're already in it, you're keeping them. So those are the tough guys. Who are you trying to make moves in there? I feel like I would take Joe Mixon straight up, maybe even add, like I said, a late second. Same with Kamara. Joe Mixon in the last 6 games, he's been RB2, RB24, RB4, 4, 6, 8, and this week I believe he was RB2. He has blown up. He's been your guy. We go back to that. I made him my top 5 RB 2 years in a row on my hot takes. That didn't happen. You do it. It does. So I'm glad because I have a lot of teams that have Joe Mixon and he's really taken off. How much can you add to Christian McCaffrey to get Joe Mixon at this point? And how bizarre does that sound, right? Like that just sounds insane.
I'm like adjusting to this whole conversation. That's
the
right.
counter I got from that, right? Like, so I offered Christian McCaffrey for Joe Mixon. The counter I got back was Leonard Fournette for Christian McCaffrey. It's like people, I was like, I can't do that. Leonard Fournette's been great. But there you're looking at a guy who's more like on the trade calculator, they have him all the way down at RB29, which feels like a real disservice for the way that he's been playing because he is the RB5 on the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that 1-for-1 deals can be tricky, but let's just start with Joe Mixon. I actually could see myself doing it straight up. I mean, Mixon has the workload that we used to see with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, 28 carries, again, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had another 4 receptions. So 32 touches in that game. He is a full-on workhorse. And so I like that one. I do think that you could try and find a couple of reasonable trade partners in your league, get them both, 2 or more different teams interested in CMC and kind of see if you can't get them bidding off each other, convince them like the guy's going to be coming back. He's got all off season. And, he was the guy for so long that you could conceivably see him getting back there. But yeah, I like that one. I mean, I think if you could pick up a guy like Chubb, how much more am I adding with CMC? Hopefully not more than a second. You and I love to throw in thirds if that could work, or another piece.
I don't think I've drafted a third in years. I just throw it in. It's close. Have my third. Just take it.
Right. Well, in that trade I referenced, I had 2 thirds involved in that one, and that's what it takes to get things done. If you could get away with that, fantastic. But you're probably going to have to give up a second or another piece to get a guy like Joe Mixon. Maybe it's a Nick Chubb. Or, look, I mean, Kamara, you mentioned he's coming back. I think that's kind of interesting, although I'm not sure what to really expect there with the Saints.
Yeah. And the other thing you got to look at. Maybe a guy like
Gibson, Gibson and maybe you get something else. Like
Gibson, since the bye week, has according to Fantasy Pros, the best fantasy schedule from weeks 13 to 17. The only 5-star guy there. And, 2 games against the Eagles. He has some nice matchups in here. And he's been looking fantastic. And that's the kind of – we talk about insulated trades all the time. I think you could still get Antonio Gibson in a first.
Yeah, you might. And look what just happened. I mean, part of that week 12 carnage, J.D. McKissick, in case you missed it, late Monday night in the 4th quarter, goes down and gets carted off. Like the whole team's crowded around him. Doesn't look good. I haven't heard what the news is there yet, but Gibson's coming off a career-high 29 carries, 111 yards, 7 receptions.
Yep.
So people complain about them using McKissick. Well, all right. Don't lose sight of the fact
that he was the guy that scored 2 touchdowns. Workload. And yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that also means if McKissick's gone, he's getting all the red zone touches probably. Maybe they work in Patterson a bit.
Patterson's going to be involved a little bit, yeah.
36 touches. Like that's the identity of that Washington offense. They want to pound the ball, control the clock. It's exactly what they did against the Seahawks.
So when we're talking about Christian McCaffrey, the other thing we got to look at here a little bit is, are you the 1 seed or the 2 seed? A lot of people, when I've been talking to them, they're like, well, I'm the 1 seed and I lost McCaffrey. I think I'm going to strip it down. Whoa. You don't know if you're going to be in this spot again next year, right? So this is the time where you make moves like that. If you're the 6th seed and you feel like you have a 10% chance here, we're not saying sell McCaffrey for pennies on the dollar. We're trying to say we're going to give you some alternatives. Some of the trades that were sent in are pretty crazy. So let me go over a couple of these with you. First one is from...
Go ahead. Well, I just wanted to make one other point is those that are listening that are rebuilding. I think you made this point in the last pod, but as we're pulling up these trades, think about this also from a rebuilding perspective. You actually have all the leverage, right? Because you got some very motivated people that are going to try to take on the ship. They're willing to part with some of these guys for 70 cents, 80 cents on the dollar. You need to jump in there and make some offers. This is the time to do it as we approach the playoffs. Some of these teams may actually need to win out to get to the playoffs, or like you said, they're in a position to win, but they need to recover from that injury. So keep that in mind as we're going over these trades. You can benefit from this on the rebuilding side.
And be open-minded. Like when I offered a Christian McCaffrey, I wanted Leonard Fournette in the first, and he goes, no, I can't do that. I'll do Fournette even. I'm like, hey, that's a situation there where you might benefit off of that. It was a 23 first. He might benefit. You got to find some moves. Don't just say, I don't want McCaffrey. It's a piece. It's a piece you can move that you can get for 80 cents on the dollar and then sell for $1. That's how you do it. That's how winning is done when you're in those rebuild phases. It doesn't mean you're only buying guys that are 22, 23. You're buying guys that people don't want. And I think that's a situation right now where McCaffrey, people are hands off. And from the first trade here from at the FFRX, from Capital Pigs 3, that's a big-time league with John Bosch. I believe even Scott Fish is in one of those. It's the guy today traded Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry for Austin Eckler this morning, 2 for 1.
Yeah, I saw that one. That is wild.
That, to me, is like, that is how winning is done right there, right? I mean, absolute smash, except I understand wanting to get a piece that's startable, but that one's gonna bite. That one's gonna bite hard when those two guys come back next year.
Oh my gosh, that's so like such an obvious mistake for me. That's like Kirk Cousins lining up under the guard. Like everybody knows that's not what you want to do.
Well, and sometimes you just got to put all the chips on the table. In one league, in UDPL2, I have Cook and McCaffrey, and I offered them both of them for JT and Diggs, and I got laughed out. You're like, nope, not worth it. And I'm like, I was going for it. Another one here. We've alluded to him already, but FF Day Trader, contending team lost both Dalvin and CMC. He gave CMC and Robert Woods for James Conner, Josh Jacobs, and Cortland Sutton. So talk about that one for a little bit. He was giving up McCaffrey. He said he's all in. He doesn't start Woods. It's not somebody that, obviously no one is at this point, but he's not in his starting lineup plans for next year. So he gets Conner, Jacobs, and Sutton. Jacobs and Conner will both be starters for him.
Yeah, so this is one where you spread it out and get a couple pieces and try to get as much value as you can out of it. So I do get the strategy. You're getting really two low end kind of RB1, high end RB2. Okay. Yeah. So you traded away your RB1 for, let's say, a couple of RB2s that have the potential to score touchdowns.
And Connor's had some weeks where he's won it for
huge
you.
Weeks. So you got the upside in play, right? And that's what you're trying to replace is the floor and the ceiling with McCaffrey. So, I don't think it was quite enough. Cortland Sutton, if we just want to talk about that for a second, you and I were talking about how Jerry Jeudy, we thought all along was going to be the alpha. Mung, he's not here to defend himself, but he was a Cortland Sutton guy. Yeah. Sorry, Mung. But here we are. Have you seen the splits? Cortland Sutton has fallen off the face of the earth. With Jerry
I've dropped him in redraft. There's just nothing.
He is almost droppable. Even Tim Patrick's outplaying him. And Noah Fant and the running game have also been areas of focus. So, I understand it. I probably wouldn't make that move myself.
Yeah, and I feel like that's one where, if he wins it all, it's going to be great. The other guy definitely likes the side that he got. The other trade that he made is he gave up Dalvin Cook in a second for Amari Cooper and Tyler Lockett. Another one where it's like, oof. And he asked me about both of them, and I'm like, that was my reaction on both of them, like, oof.
Painful.
And
yeah.
in the tweet, he wrote, "I don't love either of them, but the team's strong enough to still contend for a few years now." You know, he feels like that still keeps him in contention. And it's like, he goes, I play to win the game. I play to win some money. And that's what I want to do. So it's like,
and I have
it's
a ton
your
of
team
respect
ultimately.
for that. I really do. And it's not my team, right? I have a lot of respect for guys that can just put it on the line, that, you know, have the balls to go in and do that, right?
Another one sent in from, this was in my DMs today, from Scary Terry. That's at Johnny Taylor 28. He put, would you trade Christian McCaffrey for Aaron Jones and Chase Claypool? And I put, yeah, absolutely. Like, to me, that's a smash, except if you're working in there. He goes, just to clarify, I'm getting Christian McCaffrey. And I'm like, oh, man, you're in contention and you want to get Christian McCaffrey. That one we got to talk about a little bit here, because it's like, if you're in contention and you give up Aaron Jones, and Aaron
You're
Jones
tossing your chances away right there by doing that.
Yeah, that's what I told him.
You really got to make
So,
that judgment call. Yeah.
he said, I don't want to, and he goes, thanks again for the input. I agree. I thought it hurt my depth a little bit, but I don't want to lose out on a championship. You know, and that's why we ask, you just shoot us a DM, talk about these a little bit. You know, what the advice we give to you, do you have to take it? No, but we want to give you the most educated possible thought process the whole way around. And it's like, yeah, go ahead. You go get Aaron Jones. If you don't like Chase Claypool, trade him for another piece, because a lot of players like Chase Claypool, you know, and they go out there and get him, and that at least keeps you in the game. Aaron Jones is a guy that, you know, we're starting to sour on a little bit, but early on in the season, the guy was putting up huge numbers. I think he's going to get a lot more integrated in. This past week, people were like, oh, he barely played. Look at the game script, right? Look at the game situation. It was below freezing. A.J. Dillon's healthy. Are you going to roll a guy out there coming off an injury like that? You know, you're going to lose him a little bit and let Dillon pound it down. And I mean, the Packers honestly had a great game plan. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, they did. And man, it's been fun to see Mr. Rogers the past couple of weeks put up
Gotta
those
start
points.
Rodgers,
like,
baby.
You got to. It's like just put the guy in your starting lineup and enjoy.
And I'm making moves for him. You know, like, I'm finding there's situations where teams are, you know, they're still selling Aaron Rodgers way too low. If you can get him for that playoff run, that is a fantastic one. Another trade we have here, sent in from Dynasty in my mind. We'll ask about that later. I don't want to, but so
He needs a different kind of lawyer, I think.
we don't deal in sexual harassment cases.
Yeah, no, we don't take those cases. Sorry, bud.
Christian McCaffrey and an early second, or Josh Jacobs, Michael Carter, and a 23 first for a rebuilding team. Twitter has it at 59% McCaffrey, and I think they got it right. You know, I think Jacobs and Michael Carter, neither of them have a ceiling of an RB1. I think they're both RB2s. It's going to be fine. That 23 first, I'm assuming, isn't his if he's rebuilding. You know, and if it is, that might be a little bit of a different story. But he gets an early second next year. He gets Christian McCaffrey. And next year, when McCaffrey comes out and he has 2 or 3 great games, you can sell him for more than that easily.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, I mean, I'll just say my style, if I'm trading away a premium player, okay, even if it's a hurt player, you really want to get a premium player in return. Sure, maybe it is a package, but you got to be able to convince yourself that what you're getting does have, let's say, 80%, 90% of the ceiling that McCaffrey did when he's healthy. You want a premium player. Like, if you can find an RB1 or a wide receiver 1 in dynasty rankings, that's kind of what you want to be shooting for as part of that package, right? You don't want to just get a bunch of pieces that are kind of like middle of the road. I personally try to avoid those kind of moves.
Well, and they're always asking, you know, I'm getting 2 23 firsts. They project kind of late for this player. You're like, you want to make sure one of those is an early pick, a pick that you can use soon, a guy that you know is going to be a premium asset. Because if you do that in the wrong class, you know, you're trading for 2 late wide receivers who might not break out. You know, you're trading for a season where you're going to get, you know, you might have traded an elite asset and you get some Jalen Reagor type players, you know, which, by the way, man, he killed dropping those 2 touchdowns at the end. He should not be in the lineup.
Oh, I want to make another comment here too on your strategy. Like, come back to what is your strategy, all right? If you're competing and you're trading away McCaffrey, why are you trading for picks? Unless you plan to flip those and you already have like other trade targets and trade partners in mind, that is probably not what you need in this deal, right? We only have 2 weeks left in the regular season here, right? Mm-hmm. So be careful on your strategy and make sure that you have one clear path, and the value you get in return is going to help you with that strategy.
Yeah, and you got to go with that strategy, go with that plan, and stick to it. You can't go back and forth here. You know, I mean, the trade deadlines. I think I'm down to just one league that has a trade deadline, because I love being able to make those trades in week 14, 15, and just really puts the dichotomy of the league a lot closer. You know, you can really get it from adding to that guy that's trying to go all in. The other guy gets extra pieces, and that's just we're here to kind of help you out. You know, if you want,
as your lawyers, we're
that's
here to
right,
help
baby.
You smash and cash. So listen up, folks.
And that's 555-555-5. It's the fives. No, I didn't put enough of them in there, but I am getting over the flu, people. So here we are. You know, that's why we're doing a 2 o'clock episode. So we love you guys.
You got knocked down as well.
Let's talk about the next one is Dalvin Cook. So it's a little bit more of a different situation, right? If you have Christian McCaffrey and you're a contender, you're definitely looking to move if you can. You know, and there's different options of moving him, or if you still have that late first, going up and picking out a player. I mean, I've been all over late firsts for guys like Leonard Fournette. You know, maybe James Conner in a little bit, maybe Cordarrelle Patterson, and you get something back. Maybe, you know, David Montgomery. There's some guys here. Elijah Mitchell's on that scale now, where, you know, he's a top 20 dynasty running back in a lot of websites. Maybe Josh Jacobs. I mean, there's some guys out there that if you have your late first, you can still get an asset.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at a few that are just like that. I pulled up DLF Trade Finder. Dalvin Cook for CEH and a 23 first. Dalvin Cook for Travis Kelce in a first. Wow, that's a smash. So yeah, those kind of deals make a lot of sense to me. Here's Dalvin Cook for Cam Akers and Derrick Henry. Everybody's down on that one. But yeah, here's Cook and Madison for 2 firsts and a second. That's kind of interesting. If you're not competing, you're just trying to get value back. Here's Dalvin Cook for 2 firsts and Latavius Murray. So yeah, it's kind of where the value is right now.
Yeah, I mean, you could take some picks, and we didn't even talk about the Carolina situation, but you know, we talked about it several weeks ago, right? Mm-hmm. Mung and I were saying, when you're rebuilding or if you're contending, the minute McCaffrey comes back, Chuba Hubbard's value dies. I saw people paying late firsts before McCaffrey came back, and then I saw people pay him 3rd-round picks. He averaged 12.9 fantasy points over the weeks where McCaffrey was out. So
yeah,
if you have him and the rest of your team is rock solid, you know, you don't have to go out and sell Christian McCaffrey for pennies on the dollar. You definitely don't. You can get by with Chuba Hubbard maybe. Amir Abdullah has made himself a lot more of an option here. I mean, he had 6 targets after McCaffrey went out of the game. Mm-hmm. You know, it's going to depend a lot on game script here. I'm not saying push all your chips in there, but maybe, you know, you're right in the mix. You pay a second, or maybe 2/3 for Chuba Hubbard and get that kind of option. You know, we're going to talk about Madison. He's going to be a lot more expensive. But in that Carolina situation, I think
it's
one of these guys is going to have a little bit of value.
And follow the news really closely. See if you can maybe pick up what the beat writers are saying at practice for the Panthers, things like that. Kind of get on Twitter, see what people are saying. I personally think it's going to be Chuba Hubbard that's getting a bigger workload, but clearly they want to work in Abdullah some, especially in the passing game. And they're cheaper. You might be able to pick them both up for really cheap. Abdullah might even be on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
To your point, Madison. My name is Alexander Madison.
He sounds like a lawyer.
He does, and he's also stars in a very popular musical.
Yes, does he? All right.
Yeah.
But when he stars, right? When he is the guy, he has 4 starts. Okay, over that time, 82 carries for 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, 17 receptions, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. That is over 20 points per game, and the definition of a bell cow. He's the guy that's been a premium, you know, handcuff, both him and Tony Pollard. By the way, if you got a shot to get Tony Pollard in the deal, do that as well, because Zeke's a little banged up, you know, and we're going to start resting him. Alexander Madison, let's talk about his cost now, right now. You know, before Dalvin went down, 2nd-round pick. I think you could get him anywhere for a 2nd-round pick. Now you'd be lucky to get him for 2 seconds because I think people are going to hold out for a first or want more than he's possibly worth. What do you think of Alexander Mattison here? Right.
So, first of all, I think that Mattison is going to be putting up RB1 numbers the next 2 weeks. Yeah, really, he always gets the workload. They stick with him, and he usually kind of generates about 85% of what Cook did. Had a few big weeks. The thing about it is, like, how long is Cook going to be out? Because if he's coming back, let's say 3-4 weeks from now, and you're kind of eyeing week 15, 16 for the playoffs, you want to make sure you don't overpay for a guy that you're not going to necessarily even use in the playoffs. So there's a little bit of risk there and uncertainty because we don't know exactly how long Cook's going to be out. I don't know what you're hearing, Mike, but
no, I'm hearing 2 to 3 weeks, and a lot of people are asking me, hey, should I give up a first for Alexander Mattison? And as a lawyer, I've been practicing my jargon. I said, objection, Your Honor. We're not going with a first-round pick because, there's some people are like, well, hey, Dalvin Cook might have some legal problems next year. Or we don't know where that's headed. We don't know what those things are. Madison's a fine fill-in, but you don't want to overpay. I would much rather pay for a guy. If I have my choice of a first-round pick and I can get Alexander Mattison or I can get Leonard Fournette, because I have not seen Leonard Fournette go for much more than a first, I'm taking Fournette. I'm taking a guy that I know is going to have a stable situation next year.
Yeah, a guy like Elijah Mitchell I would rather have for sure. I'd rather pay more for him. I mean,
Elijah Mitchell looked fantastic last game.
Yeah, did you see that the workload that he had? Let me pull it up. 27 carries, 133 yards, and a touchdown, and 5 receptions, 32 touches. That's what Shanahan wants to do, right? He wants the speed on the field, whether they're smaller or not, and just feed them. He wants to run the ball 40 times a game, which Debo had 6 carries as well and 2 rushing touchdowns in that game. But Elijah Mitchell now could be more valuable with Debo going to miss the next 1 to 2 weeks is what I'm hearing.
Let's talk about Debo then, because right now, I think if you are a 1 or a 2 seed and you have that bye locked up, go after Debo Samuel, because there's a lot of teams they're worried right now, right? You saw him walk up to the podium. He wasn't really limping. He said it's not a big deal, and I believe that. The guy's a warrior. He feels like a guy who's going to come back next week or the following week, and he's going to ball out. He has been someone that's gotten you there, and I think you can buy him a little bit cheaper. You can make a type of move where someone really wants a veteran, and you push that guy. You push a Mike Evans. You push someone like that to make a little flip there.
I think that's like a buy high, if you want to use that phrase.
Yeah.
Buy high on Debo. He'll be back for the playoffs. Thankfully, the teams I have Debo, I'm also, because he's done so well, I'm looking at like a 1 seed first round bye, and I think he's back by week 16, so I'm feeling okay. But if you're in a different situation and you want to pick him up, there's people calling in right now to try to get.
We have Debo on the phone right here.
How long are you gonna be out, Debo? But no, it's
just this week.
Okay, good. That's great to hear. But I see your point. I think he's a buy high if you can somehow get him for maybe it's somebody that has to win out. Week 13, 14, they're sitting with Debo, make them an offer, pick him up, but pay up for the guy. I think that it's just a groin. Or I was joking, like, before we knew what it was, like, could we get Mr. Miyagi in there and go help the guy out? And they're like, oh, it's a groin injury? Never mind, Mr. Miyagi, we'll save you from that one.
It's a low grade one. I think he's going to be all right.
Just tightened up on him. I mean, I think he's going to be all right. Just give him a week off.
But man, if you were watching that game and you had Dalvin and Debo on back-to-back plays,
back-to-back plays.
I'm laying on the sofa, right? I'm laying on the sofa with the flu. My kids are kind of playing around me and stuff like that.
Yeah.
On here. What is wrong with Dad? And I'm like, I lost Debo and Dalvin. They're like, I didn't care about being sick at that point. It was just a matter of man, I lost my guys. Another guy we lost.
You threw on your jacket and your tie, and you're like, now it's time for the injury lawyer.
And you're carrying me here because I could barely talk, but I love it. Another guy potentially in that situation is we lost Darren Waller this week. He's probable for week 13 with what's the left iliote.
IT.
Let's call it that. Yeah. He's day to day. I'm a little worried though. We saw Waller bounce back after he came off the bye, and now he's injured again. I mean, should we be concerned?
I think so. He's a really, really tough guy, and I think that he kind of wanted to come back in the game, but they wanted to be careful with him. So I'm not actually quite as worried about Waller for that type of injury. I think he'll be back in a couple of weeks. I think worst case he's out 2 weeks, but they're even saying they haven't ruled him out for week 13.
Yeah, I mean, from fantasy,
yeah, I'm not.
Football
Right.
guys, I got an email today. It says that he's probable for week 13, but they also said the IT ban typically takes, 10 days to rehab and recover.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's somewhere,
there you go.
If not week 13, he will be back week 14.
Right. He's back for the playoffs, though. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm not overreacting to this, especially if you got that first round bye, you're feeling better about it. But, I mean, look, he actually went down twice in that game.
Yes.
It was a roller coaster. He's like, oh, thank goodness he's back. He's playing. And then the very next, is that Waller calling?
That's Waller now. Hey,
Yeah.
Darren, how you doing?
What did he say? 1 week, 2 weeks?
He said he's not even missing anything, man. He's in there. No.
We're getting, man, these injury lawyer calls are coming in fast.
That's
and
what it
furious.
is. Like,
Everybody
I got
needs
the
our help.
headset. It's not working properly. I was going to, flip it down and just talk to him. But,
Is that the
they're calling
555
off the
number?
hook.
Yeah.
What's that?
Is that the 555?
It's the 555 with only,
That
6
explains it.
digits. That's all I could think of. they got the special number. It's like the bat phone, the smash phone. You're just like, hey.
Smash phone. I like that.
No, I think the question I've been getting with Waller is, would you trade Waller for Mark Andrews straight up here? And I was very intrigued by that because there's some teams where I'm like, Mark Andrews has looked great. He is healthy, and it's like, I could see that if you're feeling uneasy about it, where it's like, it's a short-term gain, possibly a long-term loss, but both of them, are going to be in their prime here for the next couple of years.
Here's my injury lawyer advice on Waller. Unless you have to win out, you had Waller, you have to win week 13 and 14, and maybe you have to play in week 15 in the first round of the playoffs. That's the only reason I would sell Waller, and I'm trying to get 95% of the value.
Yep.
If there's any other scenario and like you're looking at, you're pretty much locked into the playoffs, hold the guy. Don't overreact, and don't give away future value for no reason. But, look, a guy like Mark Andrews, that's close enough. Okay, I'm cool with that.
The only tight end handcuff in the league is Foster Moreau, in my opinion. He goes out there and he still balls out. So he's
right.
You should have him. You and I talked about when Waller went down the first time, right? Mm-hmm. And people that know me make fun of me because across my 15 leagues, I have Darren Waller in 11 of them. And people kind of mocked me right then and there. And I have Zach Ertz in 10 of those as my backup because I got him cheap. I think Zach Ertz is the answer if you really need a cheap tight end. Or Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas has the easiest tight end schedule down the stretch. He shook some of that rust off now. And I feel like Logan Thomas, with McKissick out, is even going to elevate more because he's going to be that security blanket. He's going to be a guy that's in there. Huge red zone target. And I think he is a top 5 to 8 tight end down the stretch here.
I will add a couple more. If you're just looking to trade for tight ends and you need to replace somebody, especially in premium leagues, Gronk looked good. He looks finally healthy. Finally, just picked up right where he left off with Brady. I think he was the highest scoring tight end in week 12, if I'm not mistaken.
Great.
Dawson Knox and Pat Freiermuth are my other 2 targets, but love both those guys.
So I had someone message me. Actually, it was our guy, Fantasy Hacker. He messaged me last night. He's always making trades. Got a message at like 2 a.m. And it was like, he's like, should I trade Elijah Mitchell and Pat Freiermuth for Kittle in a 16-team league? I said, nope.
No.
Because his next best depth piece was Sutton. And I was like, sometimes you make a move like that and you feel a little bit sexier putting Kittle in that lineup than Freiermuth, right? But Freiermuth is putting up very similar numbers. Elijah Mitchell's been fantastic. You take those guys out of your lineup, now you have no depth. Anybody goes down, and you're hurting for that stretch run. You got to think about those things.
Totally. And if you look at what Shanahan wants to do right now with the current makeup of his offense, he wants to pound the ball. And so what is Kittle doing? He's blocking. I mean, he's blocking on over half the plays. He had, I think, 1 catch.
Yep, 2.8 fantasy points this week.
That was the identity. And Shanahan just if he's up, as they were against the Vikings, he has a lead. He is going to just pound the ball. And that's the thing. Kittle is a complete badass. He's a mean blocker.
Dude, that block he had, was that against the Rams?
Oh my
Where he just
gosh.
just
embarrassing.
with Von Miller, he just
pancaked him.
That was insane.
The guy.
I love that. Staying with San Francisco, Brandon Ayuk has been the 8th most targeted player, since this resurgence he's had over the last couple of weeks. Debo out. You got to really have an uptick here of Brandon Ayuk, which I don't feel like most of the fantasy industry has caught up with yet. There's two at the beginning of the year. Mung had him as a top 12 type dynasty wide receiver. I feel like now people have him well outside the top 20, and I feel like you could buy him cheaper than what you should be able to at this point, especially with Debo out. There was thought there that, once Kittle came back, it was going to kind of eat into everybody else. Debo's getting his, Ayuk's getting his, and I think Kittle's going to get an uptick here with Debo out for sure as well.
I do have to give Shanahan some credit, like we talked about the Shanahanigans, but I mean he's got the 49ers back in the playoff race, and he is utilizing his weapons, right? He's getting Debo more involved in the run game, and he definitely is. He's, for whatever reason, I mean, Brandon Ayuk was like left for dead for a while, but he's figured out a way to motivate him and get him back. He did have 6 targets in week 12. Again, the passing volume is a little low, so I would not trade for him or value him more than like a wide receiver 2 right now in Dynasty, but he is getting a good amount of looks in that offense. And, they'll probably have some games where they pass more, especially if they're playing from behind. So he's a decent trade target for both the stretch run here and for Dynasty.
Absolutely. We got a trade alert. Matt Foley at the Not Real Swami just sent one in as we started. We're looking at a 1 quarterback contending team, full PPR, J.K. Dobbins and Devonta Smith, or Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. This has Twitter, I think, is all over this one. They got it at 75-25. This is the type of move where if you give up J.K. Dobbins and Devonta Smith for Aaron Jones and you don't win the championship, it hurts
extremely
bad.
Painful.
Because I feel like Dobbins has equal or very close value to Aaron Jones. This is a move where it's like, if you are rebuilding, if you are not a contender, this is something you float out there. You try to get some of these young pieces. J.K. Dobbins is someone who, if someone's contending at this time of year, myself included, I gave him up to get Derrick Henry. That didn't really work too well. But this is the time of year where you can get those guys that are on IR, those guys that are done. You get them cheap.
Oh, yeah. No, Dobbins, I mean, I still believe in Akers is another good target. Derrick Henry. Yeah, I like the strategy in general. In that particular deal, though, I would have wanted to get a little bit more for Dobbins. I still view him as like a low RB1 in Dynasty in that offense. I think that he's got so much upside still. Yeah. So, and Devonta Smith, come on. I mean, he's balling out. Like, the Eagles' passing game does disappear from time to time, but he's the clear number 1. And we've seen what he can do in his rookie season. So pretty high ceiling, I'd say, for that guy as well. And so you're trading away 2 very high ceiling players for a potential running back committee there in Green Bay. I don't know if that's quite enough, but look, I get it. I get it. You're desperately looking for a strong piece to help you win. So again, that's what we're talking about. It's your team. You want to make the move?
Got another one. People are excited. We're on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They're like, hey, I got a little bit of time from work. I can throw in some questions.
Call the injury lawyers.
That's right. I didn't get any calls, but this was actually sent on Twitter. Clinton Pippert at KPippert11 just moved Christian McCaffrey and Hawkinson on a win now team for Thielen, Melvin Gordon, a 22 first and a 23 first. So he felt like he needed to move him. Get a little help. He's young enough. He wants to know if he made a good idea. Now I'm looking at this trade, and I love Hawkinson. So let's take Hawkinson and the 23 first, maybe a little bit more, and kind of rule that out. That's kind of, this is a tricky one because I think I would deal Christian McCaffrey on a win now team for Thielen, Gordon, and a high first. If at least a mid first, if that's going to get you over the top. Is this a fair deal? I mean, I feel he's 9-2. He wants to go all in. Melvin Gordon and Thielen are guys where, if you go all in, their value is going nowhere but down. But he does insulate it with a 22 and a 23 first. Let's call them both mid because we don't have any idea. If they're late, I would not do this.
I actually would say I wouldn't do it. Here's why. It's what I said earlier in the pod. Like, okay, well, if you're competing, you're 9-2. Why are you trading for picks as part of the deal? Unless you plan to immediately flip those. I understand they have stock value, but like,
right.
what's the?
You'd
plan
rather
there?
see a
If
better
we're
running back than
cascade
Melvin
that,
Gordon.
I would rather see, like I said earlier, a more of a premium player that you get in return. You're not getting that with Thielen or Melvin Gordon. You're getting two kind of average flex type pieces, and you're getting two picks which you can't use to help you win the ship. So I don't love it in terms of the overall strategy unless you are going to cascade the picks. And I'd definitely be targeting a better running back than Melgo, who's got possibly just a few remaining games in his career in Denver. Mm-hmm. So this is one where it's like, how much did you really help yourself in the fantasy playoffs? And wow, is that one going to sting if it doesn't help you win? Because what are you left with? A guy that's going to be searching for a team next year. Adam, more than a Thielen, I love him. But
I love Adam Thielen.
I do. I love, and he seems to like score every game somehow.
He does.
But yeah, he's very consistent. But I mean, his time is got to be slowing down at some point in the near future. So it's kind of a mixed bag for me on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a lot of people that are chiming in on that one. You know, CMC doesn't seem like that kind of move, but hit me up on that one. I think we could probably take a couple of those picks and flip that, and you might end up getting. I mean, 2 first-round picks is going to buy you a decent running back. I mean, I feel like you could get Antonio Gibson, who we've been talking about. So you go flip that. Now all of a sudden we like it again. You go get
Gibson, Elijah Mitchell.
Exactly.
Yeah, those Lenny Fournette.
Again, we talk about that a lot on the podcast. Those picks, you might know someone in that league. I mean, you know your league mates. There's always that guy that wants a pick. He he'll give up anything for picks towards the end of the year. And that could be a great move, but that particular move we're not super wild on, but it could pan out. We got another deal here that just got sent in. I mean, they're flying in right here, right?
Okay.
The phones are going crazy. I got them in my earpiece. So we got a 10-team Superflex sent in from Parham season. Not quite happening. But anyways, 23 firsts and Michael Thomas or Elijah Mitchell and Dalton Schultz in a 2-point tight end premium. He is retooling here.
Oh, I like the Mitchell Dalton Schultz side big time. I think that's a nice. I'll say that's a smash move, and even if Twitter doesn't agree with me,
Michael
Thomas. Yeah, for whatever reason, people are still holding out some hope for Michael
I just
Thomas,
can't quit Michael Thomas. Ever since that was our first big smash accept like trade thing, right? Like that was our thing. And I traded Michael Thomas everywhere. I was like, I even sold myself while we were talking. I'm like, yep, let's go get him. So the 23 first, I feel like if you had a choice of a random 23 first or Elijah Mitchell and you're retooling a little bit, I think people are loving that 23 class.
I do. And I think that, we've talked about it a number of times. I do love the 23 class. But look, you still have 2 seasons to go try and trade for a 23 pick. It is going to gain in value between now and then. A ton of value. The 23 class is absolutely legit. But I mean, look, Elijah Mitchell, if he really is the RB1 in San Francisco, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Raheem Mostert. Trey Sermon has just not been able to get on the field. If Elijah Mitchell went early in the draft, like Trey Sermon, we would be talking about him as like a potential RB1 in Dynasty right now. Mm-hmm. The draft capital has swung it a little bit, but Shanahan is clearly voted with his lineup. He wants that speed, that breakaway speed capability on the field, and that's what's driving the decision there to play Elijah Mitchell, and he's committed to the workload. Dalton Schultz, too, has looked terrific, clear tight end 1. And it's a premium league. I'm kind of liking that. And look, if it doesn't work out, those guys still hold a good amount of value. They're both young. You could still flip them for a 23 first later, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm on that side.
Got another one sent in here. They're just flying, man. Grayson Chilton sent in. He's on the opposite side now, John. He goes, there's some teams right now that need running backs. They need quarterbacks in my league. And I'm rebuilding, and I have Henderson, and I have Taysom Hill. What do I do with them? Is there chances they're more than just rentals for the year, or are those players that I should be moving? So I answered the question, but let's hear what you have to say between both Henderson, who Mung and I have been really high on, and he's shown flashes here when the Rams use him, and Taysom Hill, who finally comes back onto the field after Trevor Siemian has been just laying out duds.
Well, so without hesitation, I applaud the move. See if you can move Hendo and Taysom now with both at a potentially, I won't say necessarily peak value, but pretty near, right? Because even if they decide to stick with Henderson next year in LA, I mean, Cam Akers is for sure going to be back. Okay. And so you have to factor that in. Henderson's not going to be getting the workload that he has this year. Right. I mean, Akers, I believe, will get back. We've already seen workout videos and whatnot. He's on pace to be back, and they invested first round draft capital in the guy, second round, whatever it was. So moving him now to a competing team is a smart move. And the same thing with Taysom, right? So, yeah, you're feeling this. I would move Taysom now for sure. They announce him as starter. Somebody needs a starting QB. Boom. Move the guy at that high point. Trade, sell high.
My exact words, I like Henderson, but the Rams don't seem to show that they do. They drafted Akers. They've kind of found some ways in there. Taysom Hill is definitely a rental in my mind as well, but don't trade Taysom Hill until he makes that first start, because we know he can go out there. He has QB1 type upside. He goes out there and he puts up 24 fantasy points. Now people are going to want it. I said you could sell either of them for 2 seconds. I would shoot for a first and work your way back, and try to get that first round pick, try to push them out of there. And he put right on it, I'm making offers already, so it's like, those are the kind of things we got.
Yeah,
we are great lawyers.
Great legal advice.
We'll get you out of trouble. You're in hot water with this. We'll get you out. Here's one.
We'll work hard. Turn that into cash.
We don't rest. I mean, I'm on here with the flu. We're just working this out. We are your lawyers. Here's one from a guy you might know, Jared Selbrede, in our league.
Yeah.
He wants to know if he should trade T.J. Hawkinson in a first for Devontae Adams.
Okay.
It just came in my inbox, so it got offered to me. I'm on the other side.
Yeah. So, if I heard that right, run it back by me one more time.
Hawkinson and a mid-first or Devontae Adams.
Or Devontae Adams in a tight end premium league.
1.75, where the guy who he's trading with is in third place and competing with you, and also wearing a suit, looking fresh.
Yeah, looking pretty solid.
Yeah, so you're going to say sell Devontae, right?
Yeah, get rid of him.
So you can wait.
He's washed. No, I mean, if I'm competing, I want to hold on to Devontae right now. So I think it's a hard no, because you think you can still go in and win it, right?
We talked about that. We talked on the phone. If you have Tyreek Hill and you have Devontae Adams, everyone's saying they are big dynasty sells, right? Not if you're going for a ship. It's not just, let's just sell for pennies on the dollar. I mean, if you can get, and I keep alluding to this trade where I traded Hopkins for McLaurin in a first. If you can do that, where you think a guy is going to put up similar numbers, if you don't hit, it hurts. But if you hit, it feels great. And that's right. Are you risk adverse? Are you willing to make a move for one of those type of wide receivers? Then you're okay, And there are some wide receivers who are on the fringe of hitting that are going to be great, but it's a difficult situation.
I mean, the Packers got some mojo right now. Rodgers is looking good. Adams could definitely benefit from it. So that's the side I'm on. I mean, I think Jared's got like 18 tight ends on his roster, so I get
32. It's confirmed. He's 32, and I've been sitting there with Evan Ingram is my only tight end all year, and I'm fine with it. I'm just cruising through with Evan Ingram, baby.
Now, if you could cascade that first into something pretty sexy, then it becomes more interesting. But at this point in the season, you're probably riding Devontae. Yeah,
exactly. The other guy here I want to talk about some injuries in Arizona is, we have Kyler potentially coming back. We have DeAndre potentially coming back. There has been a buy low window. Not so much on Kyler, but on Hopkins for sure.
Yeah.
Are we all in here? I mean, are you worried about Hopkins at all? I'm not worried about Kyler Murray one bit. I think Kyler Murray, they took the time to get him right. They know they're a playoff team. I think the same with Hopkins, but Hopkins is a little bit older, so do we have – it's the same type of move where if you're trading for Dalvin Cook and he goes and gets hurt, you're trading for McCaffrey, you go trade for DeAndre Hopkins and he gets hurt, that value is going to diminish quite a bit.
Well, I think that Arizona played it right, and starting with Kyler, I mean, this is kind of his MO, right? He starts the season really hot. Everyone gets excited. He gets banged up. He leaves for a little bit. Then he comes back near the end of the season.
Isn't that Russell Wilson syndrome? For like 8 games, he's QB1.
He caught that syndrome, I think, but over the last couple of seasons. That's what we've seen with Kyler. And I agree. They wanted to really rest him up. Maybe he could have come back last week. They get him through the bye, and now he's healthy. And I think the same will be true for Nuke Hopkins. The thing I'll remind everyone on Hopkins, I mean, he's a guy that's out there every week. This is the absolute exception to the rule for him missing a couple of games. You look at his track record, the kid is tough. He is always out there. I don't know if we can call him a kid anymore. He's getting up there in age, but he's a tough guy. And he's a guy that I think will look pretty solid on a dynasty roster for a few more seasons. It's certainly going to help you down the stretch here.
Yeah, and I feel like we could definitely talk about this for days. But another type of move that I've been making, and it might take some criticism here, that Seattle offense has looked rough.
My
DK Metcalf has put up 3 straight duds where I flipped DK Metcalf for Waddle plus. I flipped DK Metcalf for Elijah Moore plus. And I know those don't seem like, if we talked about that when the season started, you'd be pretty grossed out. But I feel like a move, Jalen Waddle is an ascending. Yeah, I mean, he is on fire. When I saw that Penguin Waddle, since we got our Penguin suits on a little bit,
we both look like penguins right now. Yeah.
When I saw that, I was like, he put himself somewhere last week, right? He had a coming out party even further, and I flipped Metcalf for Waddle in a first, and I love it. I feel great about it. A.J. Brown, he's on the IR for a couple weeks. I traded A.J. Brown. I gave up A.J. Brown in a late first for Jamar Chase because I wanted someone. I wanted to share a Chase, but I wanted a guy who's not going to lose value, a guy who's going to put up numbers over the stretch run. And Brown and Metcalf scare me a lot right now.
Oh, my gosh. The Seattle offense is a complete unmitigated disaster. They have like...
Yes. Lawyer words.
I got to use big words here. Come on. But, yeah, I mean, I think that they have had the fewest snaps in the league. Fewest overall plays. So the volume's already down. I mean, they went, 6 drives in a row last night with not a single first down. Russell Wilson just hasn't been able to recover. He was out, and his just looked awful. He has 1 touchdown in 3 games.
That offensive line is disgusting.
Line's bad.
Yeah, honestly, he's running mazes around there trying to.
In trouble.
Yeah.
People forget, too, they traded their first-round pick, too.
Yep.
So they're 3-8 with no first-round pick. I think that went to the Jets. So that franchise is in trouble. And DK, I mean, the thing about him is he's not even getting targeted. I think he was being covered by
the first half. He had 1 target.
He just took him out of the game.
Yeah.
So you got this amazing athlete, but I mean, I guess he's just not open, or Russell Wilson doesn't trust him. Doesn't matter. He's not getting targets.
Yeah.
And so his value has been on a decline. Not a good time to sell him, but maybe you can float some offers.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. If you get one of those insulated trades like those guys, and that's a rare kind of player you're going to be able to get. But I feel like, DK's not a sell. If you can pick up some guys to, sub in your roster. One guy that I'm making moves for, Mung and I talked about him 2 weeks ago, Hunter Renfrow has just been peppered, and you can buy him for a second. And he's never going to go above a second in value, but he's going to go out there.
Value.
Exactly. And it's funny because you always see the meme of Hunter Renfrow next to A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf with their shirts off and saying, this guy's a wide receiver 1 right now, right? Because Hunter Renfrow looks like he should be not even a lawyer with us. Yeah, he's going to be our insurance guy. He's going to help us out with that. But Renfrow,
block helps you with your taxes.
I mean, without pulling it up, he's a borderline wide receiver 1 right now, and he's putting up 15 points solid. If you can get him as your wide receiver 3 and you're not trusting in one of those guys that's gotten injured, you could pick him up still fairly cheap, and I'm all for that.
I do like that pickup. Yeah, it's a nice one. Stable value, pretty consistent week to week. So pretty high floor in PPR especially.
And we'd be remiss if we don't talk about, the most important guy to their team in the entire league, Cordarrelle Patterson. That offense is disgusting. Amazing. He comes out and he puts up 30 points.
Incredible.
I keep seeing, at this point, you have to at least believe in it. You have to go in there.
You have to. Come on. It's been that consistent all year now.
I have him in 8 leagues now. I start him week in, week out. Most of my paid second-round picks or got him for free. Mm-hmm. It's like, go get Cordarrelle Patterson. Just stop. Just get him. You can put him at wide receiver or running back in a lot of different leagues.
I think
Plug
the
him in
time
there.
was. I think the time to get him was when he went down. He got hurt.
Yeah.
Or earlier on in the season. But I think we overused the term league winner. But this season, if we go back and do our Smashy Awards, like waiver wire wonders, league winners, Elijah Mitchell and Cordarrelle Patterson.
I can't wait for the Smashies.
Oh yeah.
It's good times. It's good times. Any other parting shots here? Any guys that you're like,
hey,
this is what you got to do?
For a quick second.
Let's do it.
We get a lot of questions, comments. How good are you feeling about having Zeke on your roster as your RB1, maybe your RB2, with all this talk of possibly shutting him down, getting him some rest, and clearly did not look like himself at all the past couple of weeks. He looked actually downright bad in week 12. He managed to save his week with that gift of a touchdown. But Tony Pollard has got a lot more burst, looking a lot better. They're working him more and more. So obviously I'm a little bit down on Zeke, and I'm not feeling great about it. I don't really have a lot of stock in Zeke. Actually, I have no Zeke right now.
I picked up several shares, and I know some people don't like that.
I know,
word, but the points are still there. I mean, he hasn't looked good, but if you look at it,
offense,
week 10, 20 points. Week 11, 12.8. Week 12, 16.9, and that's not in PPC. So, I mean, he is a lock for 15 points. I would love it if they kind of shut him down for 2 weeks and let Pollard do his thing and get him ready for that stretch run, because I have him there. But it's like, I feel like Pollard's definitely going to put up the points here.
I think so.
You can't trade Zeke right now, right? You're not going to get premium value, and it's not the time to trade for him. He's kind of in that weird spot, right?
Weird one. Yeah.
You got to know when to hold him.
Guy, he's going to still expect him to carry the load, but I've got Zeke kind of falling down all my dynasty rankings right now. Definitely out of the RB1 range for me.
If you're not in contention, he's got to be sold. Like, I mean, you got to. If you're not in contention, ship him out there for the namesake. People don't look. You and I watch the games closely. Not everybody does that. Some people might not watch the Dallas game the last couple of weeks and just been like, oh, he's putting up points. Which I just said because he is, but it's not pretty. So. This has been fun, putting the suit on here, having a little bit of fun as your lawyers.
You make this look good.
That's right. Hey, look at us. Would you look at us? Just look at us. Hey. Now, we love doing this for you guys. Like John and I's lives and Mung's life right now are crazier than they've ever been. I mean, I feel like that's a fair thing to say. And, we've missed a couple weeks here, and we thank you guys for tuning in with us every week. And we've been trying so hard to get out here and talk to you guys and talk about the trades you guys have been sending in. And we absolutely love you guys, and all your following. And we just wanted to, I know we echoed that in Thanksgiving, but we are thankful for you guys. And we're going to continue to jump on here because we love it. That's why we're here at 2:00.
Yeah, definitely. And this is such a fun time. Don't forget to have a lot of fun. I was involved with a back and forth matchup last night that ended up like 1-point victory over my boy Pete. I know he's listening. Sorry, man. Gibson got me the victory, but just really have fun with it. Enjoy the competition down the stretch here, and let us help you with those playoff runs, and shoot us those trades. As always, we're here to help and love the whole community. Yeah,
and guys, when you send us DMs, there's a lot of times where people are like, hey, I know you probably don't have time, or hey, I know you're busy. We enjoy doing this kind of stuff. This is what we do. We're going to help you out, you know what I mean? And they're probably like, oh, this is probably a bother. No, I mean, we like talking about this.
We want to help you smash and cash.
Exactly. So thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process.